welcome to this video. This is the part 2 of the same series which we are going, where we were discussing a lot of things regarding software development and related topics with Stephen Wahid. And welcome to, if you haven't watched part 1, go and watch that, because then this will make more sense to you, right? So let's continue our quest to gain more knowledge and more experience from the man himself, Stephen Wahid. Welcome again to part 2.
Hi, Jay.
Uh, so I think in previous part we were concluding by comparing basically the MNCs and the startup world, right?
Mhm.
And you gave some very amazing points on that. Now I would like to continue on that, right? Uh, we both have worked for startups a lot, and I think we understand a lot of its requirements, right? There's a very frequent change in requirements. There's very sometimes the works becomes very demanding, right? So what do you think, like, as a person working in a startup and especially leading a team of startup, right? How difficult or easy it is?
Uh, yeah, since Jay already mentioned, so I was basically a development team lead for 7 developers
Yeah,
in the startup that yeah.
he was my team lead too, so he's the one who was reviewing my PRs. You guys.
So so that's like a brief intro on why he's why he's talking about it, but
Stephen, bhai, just don't tell how my code reviews were, please.
his code reviews were decent, not
Okay.
nothing to worry about. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think as a lead, I would say I did face a lot of this, as you were saying, right? The frequent requirement changes
Yeah.
and the frequent changes of whether that particular feature is viable or not. Because
Correct.
when you're essentially working for a startup, you have to have that mindset that this feature that I'm even spending hours and hours of my day, okay,
Yeah.
like you might be spending like 8+ hours, but 10, 12 hours maybe generally in a startup, but even if spending that many hours, it could be scrapped and thrown away, okay, might be then, like in the next 2 months. So fit what I am not getting the right term, but basically that's how important in the grand scheme of things that particular feature would be.
Correct.
So you need to have that mindset of scrap and rework
True.
on a lot of features and a lot of things that you're actually building in a startup. So we did have a lot of that, specifically with a lot of features that we ourselves created. Some of them, stayed and became matured, towards as time passed. Like our search page was, like completely mature for a long time. And but a lot of features, since they didn't have a lot of business viability, and a
Mm-hmm.
startup works on that, like because you're building a product, because you're building an MVP out there,
Yeah.
you might have to, specifically if you're building a product, you might have to add a few features. If they're not working fine, if the user doesn't really want it, you'll have to remove those
A
features.
lot of trials and errors,
Lot of
basically.
trials and errors,
Yeah.
extremely a lot of trials and errors, and that comes from the top, like from the business level. Even if they're brainstorming on a particular feature and a huge feature, or maybe that would
Mm-hmm.
be a huge chunk of a product itself, but it might as well be scrapped and thrown away since the users are not using it, or it has very less utility.
Yeah.
Said before, right? It is more of it needs to look good in front. Any feature that you're making needs to look good in front, but in the back you'll always have trade-offs with technical debt and code, okay, like not running optimally. So even that essentially, if you want to, have those optimal codes behind, then you'll have to push
Mhm.
in even little more hours, which we
True.
used to do in our team.
Yeah.
I remember. But
Coding late nights is very common. If you haven't been in a startup, I'm telling you, coding till 2 o'clock is very normal.
it's very normal.
Yeah.
We spent hours and hours. Like, we used to log out again till 3 or 4, I guess, in the night
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And mostly just because even though our features used to be mostly scrap, and
Hmm.
basically put it out there, and if it's not working out, scrap it out.
Yeah.
So that used to be the business perspective.
True.
But since our perspective was to learn and enhance on our code, and enhance on or optimizing our code, we used to push those extra hours to, yeah, we need to at least make sure it has it runs with a certain set of standards, right? We
Yeah.
don't want our API calls taking more than 1 second or something like that.
Hmm.
So that's what we used to push for. That's what basically they will be pushing you on in a start. So have to have that mentality that, yeah, I know you put a lot of sweat and, like, a
True.
lot of time in
True.
this.
But it could be scrapped completely. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
So,
scrapped completely.
on the scrapping part, I have a question. I was watching a podcast, I was watching a podcast from Kailash Nath, who is basically the CTO of Zerodha. It's like Zerodha. It is like, it was really mind-boggling for me how they have built a product which is like, which runs on a throughput of 10 million requests per day, right? With just 30 tech people, like 30 team tech people, right? It is quite amazing. And one thing which he said stuck to my mind, and I just want your comment on this. What he said is there is nothing called management, right? He just says, I hate when someone says management, right? So he says management should work with team. Management is tech itself, right? It is one team. You cannot separate out management. The management has to understand the tech, how, not tech in the sense like how it works, but in the sense like what efforts goes in, how it is developed. And the tech team also understand, like should understand how management works, what's their requirement is. So how do you comment on this statement of like Kailash Nath?
So this is something that I did face, like, even in my past company. And we always had this issue, because when you have different teams running with different KPIs and different like, goals in their mind for the quarter. Like, I'm assuming you'll have, specific goals for a quarter. You want to achieve these many features, you want to achieve these many users. Okay, and there will be specific goals for your marketing team, for your sales team, for your sales and business team, for your development team as well.
True.
And when you're running, three different races, it makes no sense, because if it's one product, it does not need to be three different races.
Correct. Yes.
So that's a lot of startups do this, that they, like, encapsulate all of their teams under one umbrella, and that's basically what you see, what they call as cross functional teams,
Correct.
where like, you get to work with the business team as well, you get to work with the marketing team as well, you get to work with the customer support team as well. So
Mhm.
you, as a developer as well, would better understand the needs and requirements of the customer from different perspectives, the
True.
needs and requirements of the product from different perspectives as well, which is
True.
extremely important, right? Because as a developer, you have those, as I said, if there are three different races, you have those blinds on like a horse, and you're
Yeah.
just focusing on your own race,
True.
when you don't really know, like, what other people are doing. So that kind of blinds you to, especially when you're working in a product based ecosystem, that kind of does blind you towards, what the actual growth, or what the actual the target should be for this quarter, what we need to do. And
Mhm.
you can, do a lot of trade-offs from your end, and, enable a lot of other teams to actually reach that common goal that you have,
True.
than running different races. Because even if one of them fails, it's like, like, even if
Mhm.
the other two actually reach their goal, it's not really much of an
Mhm.
effect on the product.
True.
So you do, I mean, I do feel that those kind of work better. I think Spotify also runs on a similar
Yes.
analogy, and a lot of other teams do.
I think on this part, I think setting up a work culture which behaves like this is a very much a responsibility of all the leading teams, all the management itself, right? A lot of time this is not established well. What happens is like we are the management, we decide the requirement, here's the requirement, and just make it, right? I kind of like very much imagine that the developers should also know why. It's not what, but why. That is a very key requirement, I think. So yeah, that's.
Would again, as I said, no, the
Mm,
perspective of you actually thinking, oh, this can be scrapped, it's very difficult for a developer to get that perspective, because
correct,
that's all he's focused on. A
correct,
developer knows only how to code and make that feature
true.
and see how that feature is going to look to the user and
Mm,
interact with the product. That's all a developer would be concerned about. He's not concerned about the overall, like working of a product, especially if you're working in a huge team,
true.
right? You would again, like, be a smaller piece of a puzzle. So it's extremely important to get all of those people under one umbrella, so like what you're contributing towards, what's the big picture here. So
Yeah,
you would actually know what how much effort and how much like what, even if you're putting the effort that you need, what needs to be your perspective towards this particular feature that you're developing out there. So it helps you get that, perspective. Since I was a lead, I would say I kind of got that perspective very easily, like interacting with stakeholders.
true.
And even for me it took time, obviously. But yeah, I mean, in that kind of a position, but for an IC based role, like an individual contributor based role, it's extremely difficult unless until you do come under the same umbrella of all of the teams working under a single KPI.
Correct. But I think, yeah, that's, being a single individual developer, maybe a junior or a mid-level developer, it's hard to get the complete picture. That's true. And yeah, and then like second, as a we as we both have worked in a lot of startup, I see startups like Zerodha. I see a lot of new startups. They're performing amazing by a very small team, right? So there's two kinds. One you see a startup, very new startup operating with a 150 plus team. I don't know for what reason, but startups like Zerodha and Blinkit and startup like these, like small startups, they operate in a very small and efficient team. So how do you get that performance out of that small team? Because you know that the technologies are going to change. You'll try various stuff. You'll do the mistakes. You'll will pick up a wrong framework. You will pick up a wrong. How do you evolve a team from not knowing something to delivering a lot of work? Like how do you do that as a leader? I'm asking.
I mean, you do need to have a certain ground base for sure. Like, the people that you hire need to basically be a little bit experienced at least, especially with the, like team with small functioning teams, right? Like, even if you see uh, Tesla's AI team that works on the AI model that runs Tesla is an extremely small team, but they like are really really good talented individuals, and have good experience background as well. And they know what they're doing. So you do need to have a team that knows what they're doing. I mean, that would essentially be key. Like, you would have to have a good background of engineers as well. But on top of that, I guess it's more of um how do you keep the team motivated and like driven well enough to basically be able to achieve these things, like at such a small time. And that's way more important, because I genuinely feel that, yeah, I mean, if you have some kind of what do you say, some kind of leeway in terms of engineers taking time to get up to speed, you can skill them up. But specifically for people to be able to like for you to be able to motivate them, for them to be able to contribute, and put their 100% towards their product, towards your product, and like enable them with everything. So that's kind of key here, is what I feel, because that's ultimately going to drive people to take the right decisions. um and most of the decisions just don't fall out of the sky, right? Like it's not like you just watch like 2 3 videos of system design and you're already, you know what to choose where. It's extremely, it's a time taking, and it's a lot of trial and error based process. And even
True.
for a small thing, if you're able to make the effort
Mhm.
of going through a lot of let's say like even for our task of choosing like in our team, for the task that we had to choose for our API, our new API layer that we
Mhm.
for initialization and all of that, the the steps that were taken to get that coding standards and this and all of that stuff in
Mhm.
place, and reduce redundancy as much as possible.
Mhm.
So you need to basically put a little bit of efforts into researching existing projects and researching existing stuff on GitHub, YouTube,
True.
and what if you want to achieve certain things, maybe on the cloud area, or maybe on the backend area, like what is the best way to do that. There definitely Google searches prior to that, and a little
True.
bit brainstorming prior to that, that needs to go in to make those right decisions right
True.
away.
True.
And I feel with the right mixture of team, right, with the right
Mhm.
good mixture of a few experienced individuals and people who may not be that experienced but are driven as much.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're gonna be basically the people who are gonna like do a lot of research before making any technical decisions,
Yeah.
and giving their inputs and outputs to the experienced people and the
I think,
experience.
I would like to comment. Sorry to interrupt you on this. I would like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
comment
sure.
on this. I would just like to tell you a small story. So, the story which Stephen is actually telling, the setup of new repository. Trust me, I love when in your team, your leaders, like who you inspire a lot from, right? Like the Stephen and, one of the other colleagues which we have, he's Lavish. He's also an exceptional engineer, right? So, who listens to you. I mean, you can give a feedback and they have to give a reasonable output, reasonable reason why they're choosing this and why they're doing A instead of B. That is phenomenal. If you are getting that into your team in which you are working on, it's insane. Just say thank you and stay where you are. It's awesome, right? So just I would like to say that, what he's speaking, it's absolutely correct and I have experienced it. So thank you, Stephen, for
Yeah.
that.
So exactly what you're saying, like if you have experienced engineers on your team, they're going to be critical of whatever you are putting forward, right? They're
Yeah.
going to be extremely critical of whatever. Yeah, I know you've done this much research, but why is this? And if your research is solid, if you've done all the searches, you'd be able to give them proper answers, and whatever you have decided would ultimately be the output of whatever technical decision you're taking.
And
And I
how
feel
much
that's
did,
extremely
okay,
important.
how much do you think, like asking stupid questions, right, should be allowed? Because, a lot of new developers kind of fear, like they will ask a question and it will be a very stupid one. And, so how do you handle that? I just want to ask this question.
It depends, like, see, in a startup, I'm telling you, I'm being very candid, or even I used to get irritated, okay, with certain
True,
questions, because, but you do have a perspective that, like, oh, these are the same questions I used to have 2 years ago,
true.
that's what I used to keep telling you and other people in the team as well. I know, okay, I might get irritated at times, but this is my perspective, so I don't hold any. Like I get it, I totally
Yeah.
get it. But it's more basically of a trade-off. If you have a lead, or if you have a manager who's who understands that perspective,
Yeah.
who is that uh, accommodative of that,
Yeah.
so use it to as much as you can. But if you know that like that person's like that, you need to basically kind of experiment with that threshold of that
True,
person,
true, true. Right.
whoever your manager or your lead is, to basically hit that threshold to the max is what I would say.
True.
Like they just don't push it maybe.
That's
Yeah,
I get
that
it.
might that might go opposite, but then
Yeah. But as a software engineer, you cannot ask how use effect works. That's passing the threshold. Yeah.
That's a little bit, I mean, so then there are other ways to address that,
Yeah.
right? Like I would recommend, like if some engineer is actually coming to me with that question, I would actually recommend him to, okay, just spend 2 days, read the documentation of React, and then
Yeah.
come.
True.
Okay, and then tell me like what did you not get, and what you want, like
Mm.
what you want to discuss on,
True.
because there might be a few things that even I wouldn't know.
True.
And like he might be asking questions that I might be doing Google searches, and I'm like, oh, this works this way. So that's always a learning process anyway. And it's great that like it does sound nice that like, yeah, ask as many questions as you can,
But
but you need to be a little bit smart with it as well.
yeah,
Like,
timing it correctly, right? That's a very important. That's it. And then you cannot ask when the production is crashed, someone is fixing an issue, and you're going with a. Don't do that. That's not a good question. The good.
timing, I would
Yeah.
say. And especially in startups, like as Jay is saying, we are already under extreme pressure,
True.
okay, of delivering things, of attending meetings, of like of giving a good face out there, like
Mm.
basically you're the face of the development team, right? So that's when like you need to be um you need to be active at all times. Even when you're taking a break, you're thinking about, okay, what all I need to get wrapped up, and then like how is that feature going to get fixed, or you're thinking about a bug, okay, something or the other. Specifically on a startup, you're always thinking, at least in the hours that you're working.
True.
Yeah, I mean, that's so when the thinking is constantly on, when you're already under a lot of pressure mentally, you need to, like, and especially if your seniors are more than you, then you need to, like, you need to look for the timing, okay, when he's, like, and I feel our team used to do it very well. Like
Yes.
they used to very easily know when, okay, now I'm in, like, now I'm in relaxing and sharing mode. So
Yeah.
now the
Yeah.
discussions would start. Yeah.
Yeah, and trust me, I have seen Stephen in every mode possible. Right now you're seeing a chilling Stephen. I have seen in the morning. If I see if else inside that, I will reject the PR. I'm like, oh, he's not in good mood. I get it. But trust me, he's the most amazing guy. You can go and ask any questions with him. That again, everybody has a mindset. Everybody has temper. Everybody knows that. There's situations when you don't feel good, and it completely makes sense. You should respect that. I think that's very important. Amazing. So, Steven, we discussed this managing a tech team and the relationship between tech and management. And this is the, what the things which you have concluded makes a lot of sense. I think it's very important. Moving forward, I would like to discuss about really what we do, right? Really, like the things which we do from the coding perspective. Like, uh, so a lot of us have a doubt, like what should we read? Like what should we actually learn? I mean, there are tens and a lot of frameworks. There are a lot of programming languages available. Even in web development, I'm talking. Like if you go to for front end, you have Vue.js, React, Angular. Maybe like you have 3 4 more stuff available. If you go about the back end, there are 3 4. What should be the approach and where should we begin from?
I mean, it's more of a, I would say it's a very fine mixture of preference and what is
The
the
requirement.
trend and
The
the
trend.
requirement.
Okay, yeah.
And the requirement as well. Like
Okay.
if you're already in a team, you're already aligned with,
Okay.
like basically working that way, that uh, you might be, like delivering like in a certain product ecosystem, in a certain tech stack already. So you would align yourself well with those technologies. Like, yeah, I'll give you an example for me as well. For NoSQL, like I haven't been working anything other than side projects, so I haven't really aligned myself with that, right? Even in interviews, or like people will ask me stuff. Yeah, I mean, I know what it is, but like I have not really had a professional experience on it.
Yeah.
So it's not really like it more or less is a mixture again,
True.
as you said. What is your requirement, and what is, I would say, if you're starting,
Mm-hmm.
like, and you don't know what to choose, it's more on the lines of what should be the what is the trend currently.
True.
Like
Yes.
if you're doing front end development, what's the top running, like, framework? Because that keeps changing. Like every 1 or 2 years, there's a new tech in town. Okay, and people want to work on that. So that keeps changing a lot. And so I would extremely recommend, like, it's basically like choosing a model for your car, right? Or like buying a TV. Maybe you would
True.
you would go with the best technology that's already available, right? You
True.
wouldn't compromise on that, because you know that, oh, if I'll go with something old, in 10 years it's going to be, like, it's going to be obsolete, right?
True.
So that is like extremely important, that you need to
Yeah.
I think you need to align yourself with the best tech out there already. That
Eh, True.
And then from there you can build on forward, or you can like, you can learn the other technologies as well.
True. It's actually like choosing a car. Once you choose it, right? Once you have made the decision, don't keep changing your cars. First thing, very important requirement. Second is you'll be living with that. Remember, you will be coding that hours, you'll be spending hours with that thing, right? So choose it wisely, make sure you enjoy that. That's what my thinking is. What do you think about this? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because when you're choosing a car as well, like, let's say you're happy with it, okay, you're
mm-hmm.
content with it, you wouldn't change it for 10 years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You would in fact keep building on it, maybe buy a better model.
True.
Okay, similar with your phone. If you're fine with iPhones, you'll keep buying the better model there is.
True, true,
But
true.
till it's running, let's say it ran for like 7 8 years, you're not going to change that because you're
True.
happy with it, right?
Yes.
And it's similar to that.
Yeah.
So even with tech stuff, okay, with the front end frameworks that you're using, back end
Mm.
frameworks as well, it's pretty similar to that. Like if you're happy with it, it's good. But if you feel like, you should always, I would say, in your free time, like, let's say, even if you're already working for a company and you're aligned to your team and you already have a tech stack that you're working with, or that you have been working with, like me. And so I would strongly recommend to, like, at least in your free time, see what's out there.
True,
Because when you see what, because sometimes we actually get, like, we actually are surrounded with this, so we think this is good,
true,
but there might be better things out there, right?
true. Yeah.
So just in your free time, maybe dabble a little, okay, on all of that, see some YouTube videos, check out Jay's channel, maybe,
Yeah, that's a good one.
few videos on that. And then I mean, you need least what's out there, so that even if you should know that, okay, if I want to try out something, if you feel that, okay, I'm fine with this, but now what? Like, if you're that kind of a person who likes change and who likes trying new things out,
Mm,
so then this is a requirement, I would say, that would help you, like,
That's
choosing what's good out there, finding a perfect fit for you, basically.
that's extremely true. I think that's amazing. Okay, so we kind of like we know how to join and like startup and MNC. We know how to choose the correct technology, right? But what about all these what we are hearing? Chat GPT, AI, cryptocurrencies, and basically blockchain kind of fell. So these trends come and sometimes go. And now how to should we actually consider these hypes or should we stay away from them? Like what's the approach?
Especially with hypes and trends, right? Unless until it's I'm not talking about what framework you want to code in.
Mm,
That's still quite relevant. And even, like, even on that, you shouldn't go with the hype. You should actually do a lot of research,
Yeah.
okay, and do a lot of courses, like not courses essentially, but at least find out what the language or framework
You know what
is.
my
Find out,
approach was, Stephen, right? Like on this,
yeah.
what I did is I just went out and I just I just Google, top 100 companies and what they are using for building their websites. Because,
That
yeah.
is a decent enough approach as well,
Yeah.
like, because what's running, okay, and what already people have used might have already been through a lot of trial and errors, right?
True.
So the
Yeah.
best companies, and like if they're already using these technologies, it might have already gone through a lot of trial and errors.
Yeah.
And some company that maybe fits your use case well, that's
True.
already established, definitely would be a good choice for a framework, right? I mean, that's again a good choice, but I would suggest do your own research, because specifically even in topics like this, and like crypto falling, people who are invested in crypto as well, and like all of that stuff,
Yeah.
I would suggest that do a lot of research, because you would then, like, if you would actually have a lot of knowledge about all of this,
Yeah.
you would not be a one-sided person who is just going on with the hype. You would actually know its cons as well,
Mm-hmm.
know what would happen if, you
True.
know these wrong things happen.
Yeah.
So that's when, okay, you would say, okay, I'll invest a safe amount,
Mm-hmm.
which even if I lose, it's fine, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be your take on it.
True.
So you need to have to get yourself in that perspective, specifically for hypes, when like every third person is asking, and you know even with chat gpt and stuff, like I to be honest, like chat gpt writes a lot of does write a lot of like codes with bugs.
True.
So you need to be again extremely careful when you're writing, when you're asking ChatGPT for a code snippet or
But
something.
still, what do you think? Like, I know, right now we know it will be improving, like eventually, right? It will get better. Do you think these new technologies and trends, so, you know, like, for example, I would explain you with an example my question, let's take few years back, right? You will be going with PHP and stuff like that. You will be becoming that developer, right? And now what if, like in the future, these AIs and these things kind of start replacing web developers, and there's no, like, the need basically decreases, then should, because a lot of people think like that, right? So should we actually start like more focusing on AI, and what do you think on this aspect?
I mean, yeah, for sure. If you feel that way, because I do feel that way to some extent, because you can't stop this. I
Yeah.
mean, people are going to make better models out there, and
True.
people specifically who are working on AI ML are actually replacing, are really replacing at least the normal jobs right now, because
True.
chat gpt is literally disrupted content writing, if you see right now, right?
Correct.
I mean, that is the main market it's probably going to hit, and in
Content,
fact,
I think content writing is one of the markets. Second is image generation, the
yep,
artists. Imagine
image
that.
generation and artists, you
Yeah.
know and I mean, artists I still get, because there would be a need for originality there sometimes, like some people might need, but then again, it's going to be majority of the people who are going to, like, like the
Yeah, that's true.
on their walls, or like framed on their walls.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, in this aspect, I would say, like, if you actually feel that way, and if you actually feel that way strongly,
Yeah.
then do, like, definitely go for it. Because um, that's something even I would want to do in the future. I mean,
Okay.
I myself would, like, might want to go somewhere there, or maybe, I would want to go maybe in cybersecurity or something like that. Because I do feel that these, I, like, you either go to a core that AI cannot replace,
Mm-hmm.
or you go to AI itself,
True.
those two. And I think I and we both are actually currently in a safe space that it's going to take time. At least it's
True.
going to take 10, 15 years for AI to catch up, at least on normal web.
True.
would be maybe designs. Okay,
Correct, correct. Yeah.
because they're pretty, it's pretty much catching up very very soon, like now it's just text, it's text and content, it's content writing and content generation, and it's next going to be design. So when they'll be there, we basically need to be either somewhere in
Yeah.
actually or go at an even niche core that
Mhm.
AI is going to like take loads and loads of years to catch up. And it's not that as well, like it's you it depends upon the people as well, because people drive technologies, right?
True. Yes.
We can forget, like after 10 years we might even forget about how to make these things, similar to the Egypt pyramids, if you see.
Yes.
Okay, 10 like 100 years later, like we don't even know how to make those. So it's basically depends technology and how good the human ecosystem, like the human resources are going to drive, like technology further,
Mhm.
specifically in terms of AI, and how many people are going to align to it to
True.
drive it forward. Because it's always going to be built on top of products like chat GPT
Mhm. Yeah.
it entirely, right?
True. It's
And it's
it's insane. Sometimes, these new things like, one of the algorithm was DALI 3 or DALI 2, and then we got this Chat GPT, all these from OpenAI. It feels insane, seeing the progress of these technologies, right? And the progress at which these technologies are growing, and so what this what do you see like 10 years ahead of now, right? How would the software development and web development in general would look like? How would a typical day of a web developer look 10 years like from now, maybe 2030?
I would see it as a very like if it goes on the same rate it's going right now, and humans don't, don't fudge it up. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
which we
and
do have,
actually,
which we do like have a habit of doing.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we do have a habit of, like going back as well, like
Yeah.
a few years. So that's if that does not happen, I feel it's gonna be pretty AI assisted. I do feel that it's not gonna completely overtake at least web and app development, at least in 10 years.
That's true.
It's gonna be AI assisted. It's already AI assisted. If you see GitHub Copilot, like people are using that,
True,
especially
true, true, true.
a lot for their autocompletes, and in one component, it makes the other component just so simple for you. And
Mhm.
it's gonna work both ways, because I remember my first lead in my project, you told me that you should write which does kind of seem like a stupid suggestion to me right now, or to even yeah, like to any other generation as well, was that you should write HTML code in a notepad file.
Yeah, that's a lot of professors and stuff like that, they go
Just to
like.
say, because they're actually coming from a generation where a lot of these basically code editors and like autocomplete stuff kind of made their job easier, and we are coming from a generation where this is the starting point, and now Copilot is making our job easier, so we're
True,
going to get even more cushiony. And I feel that, yeah, you should allow like tech to make your job easier. You should not
true,
stop it, but you need to essentially have that sweet spot, right? Have the
true.
sweet spot as to knowing what is that doing, and to know that, okay, uh, this is how much that I need to know, at least. Okay, like I can't let the AI or like tech do the entire job for me, because it's always tech assisting.
Stephen, Bhai, one thing about this AI, one of the job, very specific job, it has completely disrupted UI and UX design for some reason. I've seen this, they basically take a mock of all the websites and all the stuff like going around the internet, and they generate completely new design out of like the thin air. I like that's insane.
right? I
Yeah.
do feel like if someone's working on a really, really good product out there,
Yeah.
like something like ChatGPT or something that actually disrupts it, like I don't even know the applications, like how is it gonna, but I already know that I think BuzzFeed laid off its employees and it's gonna
Yes.
like, yeah, laid off a percentage of its employees and it's gonna basically do content writing with ChatGPT. And to be honest, it does a really good job. Like, I used to pride myself on the fact that okay, I write good emails. I like do that writing stuff pretty good,
uh,
and similar, in fact sometimes even a better
right.
job than me.
True.
So that kind of like it does it does punch you a little. So I feel that maybe in 10-15 years, definitely, that you're saying, right, like UI UX design, it's gonna come pretty close to that. Like it's gonna be there where companies are going to might stop using designers altogether,
True.
and like actually focus on using these tools. Like if there's going to be a tool out there, and if AI continues to get enhanced as it's like in the current track.
That's that's awesome. Okay, I have like one thing. All these insane technologies which are coming, they have massive resource demand. Like, just to build something like ChatGPT, a normal person, or even a normal company couldn't afford even building something like ChatGPT because of the tremendous data processing it requires and the resources it requires. So, do you think like the power to control these technologies lie within very few organizations, right? And then how to basically then where are we in this equation, and like how a new startup would basically compete with all these big giants if they have the, because how would we compete? That's the question.
Specifically with stuff like AI, like you see OpenAI doing all of this stuff. I'm pretty sure if Google's catching up, right,
Mhm.
it's definitely gonna build a better version
That's
for sure.
true. I mean,
I mean, it has so much data, and it has all the servers that it needs. Okay,
yeah,
it can, if it wants to, it can build like a way better version of ChatGPT
yeah,
that is currently right now. And if I think ChatGPT has the last 10 years of data of the
yeah.
internet right now. Yeah.
No, it's not even like, I think not even 10 years. Like according to the website, it's like everything after 2019. That's
Oh,
insane.
that's then again, that's insane. So if Google does a job to basically, like get a competitor of ChatGPT out there, it's gonna do a way better job for sure. And again, as you see, like even with a huge company like OpenAI, if
Yeah.
Google's gonna it's gonna make a disruptive product. I'm pretty sure ChatGPT is gonna be nowhere then,
Yeah.
because if that's gonna do a better job, then I mean, yeah. Why would anyone like actually use an inferior product then anymore?
That's
But
true.
again, it's extremely difficult, specifically if you're making AI and ML models with giants that already have a lot of data
Yeah.
and a lot of servers and processors to basically
Process that data. Yeah.
process that data, because it's all about computers being able to process that amount of data, because you're going to need a huge amount of computing power to achieve that level of sophistication that AI needs. Okay, that closeness to human beings that AI needs, right?
True. Even, I sometimes, the amount of data which Google has scares me a lot. I mean, it kind of knows, I'm telling about entire humanity, the largest amount of information about actual human behavior, it would be with Google, I'm pretty sure, right? So I would move forward with this, this technology of future discussion. Uh, so we know that this design roles and this creative works are going to AI on a very large aspect, right? But uh, how, like, we know the MNCs are controlling all of these parts, but what do you think the open source community, like keeping things open source, developing open source thing, bringing the control back to normal developers, right, and companies, how much essential this is for the MNCs and also for the smaller players? Open source, like that's the thing.
I mean, it's definitely essential. If you see, OpenAI's algorithms are also open source, right?
True.
I'm
Yes.
thinking, yeah, and it's extremely essential because you would then not have control. Like one organization or one body would not have control over all of these things. Even if you see social media giants, them having control over so much data has always caused problems for humans, for
True.
countries, in fact.
Mhm.
And you know, this thing kind of needs to revolutionize in such a way that it needs control back. You need to give control back to the people, and you need basically companies. Okay, you need companies contributing more towards open source and actually keeping like products like and code like this and algorithms like this open source, so that
Mm.
people, okay, other people, other
True.
companies who want to build a better product, like can utilize that and like utilize that tech and not
True.
waste that time in not waste their own time in basically reverse engineering or like understanding.
And there's one more aspect to it. Imagine, any company, I'm talking about even these MNCs or in a startup, right? They start building their projects or they start building their products, starting from like, I think, tons of open source work. They start on tons of open source work,
Yep.
right? So giving back to the community becomes very essential, right? Because, you are already using thousands of libraries which are built by someone who has open source their work. So, it becomes a moral responsibility.
If you're actually a company like OpenAI, even if you're a smaller player,
Mhm.
and if you're trying to do something, you need to have that aspect of, because there are huge giants already established out there, like Google and all, who are gonna wipe you, who if they want to, they can wipe them out just like this, right?
Yeah.
And you we need a lot more companies out there who actually do a lot of stuff and get their stuff out in the open,
Mhm.
so that like ultimately, when a person comes into play who actually puts an algorithm that's out there, that's really that's really revolutionary,
That's true.
they can actually compete with these giants. And because that's what ChatGPT is essentially doing right now, because even with all the data and all the engineers Google had, they ChatGPT, like OpenAI could do it first, right? that's
True.
and that's what is kind of the topic right now, that yeah, that's their product. And you know
Right.
and yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Google would do a better job in a coming year, but
Mhm.
or in the coming 2 years. But I'm not, again, it's about these blows, okay, to these giants, that's gonna essentially affect and like change the course of direction.
True.
So now if there are a ton of products like this that essentially become famous over the years,
Mhm.
then the data is kind of, it's not with them and them alone. It's like distributed a lot, so then get it back from there, you know get back the control from these giants. So
True.
I mean, that's an approach. I mean, that's just a thought in of itself.
I with this about this MNC situation, I'll tell you a very funny fact, right? I don't know it's funny or serious or like how it is. This thing, this you must be knowing about DALI 2, right? Which generates the images, The main research paper regarding that was actually done by some Indian guy, right? He was the one who actually researched. There were few more researchers as well, so but he was the one who was leading the team. Now these researchers do all these research, put out the work, right? And then the benefits are reaped by all these MNCs, which is insane.
That's actually a sad reality of people who choose the path of academia, to be honest.
Yeah.
That their work is gonna be corporates are gonna basically use their work and build millions and billions of dollars over it.
True.
And it has happened in the past. It has happened to a lot of professors of friends I know.
Yeah.
And uh, I mean, there's one instance of a person who basically uh, he didn't do anything. He basically just he patented the edges of a trackpad. Okay,
Okay.
he used a tape, a scotch tape. Okay,
Okay.
to and then he basically patented that. Okay, this is where I would know the trackpad would end. Why? Because you would generally look at your screen while you're using. You won't see the outline on
True.
your like. And basically he couldn't patent it. He
Okay.
wanted to do that, he couldn't do that, and Apple stole his idea and basically built its own
Version of
uh,
it.
yeah, version of it, and then basically made a lot of millions of
That's
millions of
insane.
dollars.
I think this should be improved first thing, because I mean this is insane. People use this product and nobody considers who actually made it, right? Even though this is very strange.
I mean, if you really think it's revolutionary, patent it.
Yeah, that's
Would
true.
that's what I would, recommend people in academia who chose that path, because that's when you can actually ensure at least your own financial independence as well.
Yeah.
Okay, even though these corporates are making billions or millions of your idea, but at least you're financially independent as well after that. So
Yeah.
they'll have to pay a major chunk of it to you. So at least that's gonna be good. So I would definitely, if you feel that's revolutionary, like at least take a few inputs. If you feel that's revolutionary, patent it as much as early as you can
Uh,
before someone steals it. Yeah.
So I would like to I would like to ask you this last question. A lot of these youngsters, or like we at the college, or even we when we start doing our job, we have this craze towards starting our own company. We think like we can, if we are building for these companies and they are paying us, why don't we build our own product, right? How much is that correct, and what should be the correct approach if they actually want to build something of their own instead of uh,
Oh, okay. So if you're starting it right from college, I mean, I think like it goes either way actually.
Mhm.
But I mean, I would personally not go by that approach,
True.
because and I feel that like it has worked out for for a few people as well. But I feel that a person's mind is too immature at college, and you need to basically get out there and work and like actually see what's out there.
True.
And I feel that if you really want to start a startup for your own, work at startups,
True.
because you it's better to learn from others mistakes than to learn from your own, right?
Correct.
And you go out to startups and you work in startups and you know the atmosphere, know the culture, you know
Mm.
how they're operating, everything about the cash flow, the how they're sustaining
Mm.
themselves. Okay, you try to talk, to someone, to the business team, and maybe shift to that startup, to an established startup who has
Mm.
made it, okay, in the market, and how they've actually achieved it. Then maybe go to a startup that is aligning to a field that you want to, launch a product in.
Yes,
Okay, and you work at least three of these startups, you would actually gain a way better idea, and you would learn a lot from their own mistakes that you would not repeat it in your startup, and you would be way prepared for failures, because a startup is essentially to be very very prepared for a lot of failures, because
true.
you're always of that mindset to be trying something new. And as I said, the trial and error aspect, it extends towards everything. It
True.
extends
Yes.
towards the top,
Yes.
and they are essentially doing a trial and error even for their product as well. Unless
True.
until your product finds a market fit in your
Mhm.
market, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to even conclude that you found, you would not, you will survive it. Okay,
True.
companies like Tesla and SpaceX were close to bankruptcy,
Mhm.
and they still made it. So I'm saying that you have to be prepared for failures, for a number of it.
True.
Okay. And you need to have that kind of, at least mentally prepare you for it.
True.
Okay. And it's gonna mentally fuel you for it. And you don't want to be too later in life as well, because then you have other
True. True.
responsibilities
True.
and other stuff that you need to attend to, that you might not like have a chance to like experiment and
I,
put your product out there. Have that timeline, okay, that this is what I'm gonna do,
mhm.
and this much is enough. Okay, I'll try to gain all the knowledge and experience that I need from this much, and from this much of
I think, I actually align with almost like everything what you said. I would add to that actually. Uh, Now, starting a startup is a very cool thing to think about, right? So if you think about starting a startup, it's very fascinating. We watch Shark Tank India, we see people pitching their startup, we get hyped up. No, you should actually go on field and see how this works.
a lot of these startups, right? A lot of these startups are not profitable even yet. You see food delivering apps, Swiggy, Zomato are not profitable. You see cab apps,
Was was
Uber and
was
Ola
was the
are not profitable.
startup you were working on profitable?
Yeah,
It was.
exactly. So, I mean, uh, these startups that have been there, here
Yeah.
for a long time,
Yeah.
specifically if you're looking for a to make a product for India.
Mhm.
So these startups that have been there for a long time are still not profitable. So you need to essentially understand the fact that it's going to be a lot of effort, it's going to be a lot of money, and you might not even make money for a long time.
True.
So to gain that mindset right out of college, I feel is I don't know. I think it might be a traumatic experience if it goes sideways, right? So
Yeah.
I just
I mean, imagine taking money from your father because just after your college, you don't have money, right? You have debts to pay. So,
so I mean I
yeah,
would not specifically recommend, but I feel that yeah, if you've worked and if you've gained the right knowledge, and if you feel that you're ready for it, and you should definitely have a plan, in your mind, even if you want to start up. Because sometimes what happens is you go to the work life and you're like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm content with this, and then you just forget about it. And then maybe years later when you have a kid, you're like, oh, should have done that, like, and you see someone else doing that same thing and
yeah,
making millions. So you're like, oh, should have done it. So instead of that, you should actually have a plan
true.
if you really want to execute something, and work towards it, like gain that experience, gain that knowledge, however you want to, by talking to people, connecting to people on LinkedIn, actually talking, going to meetups, going to entrepreneurial meetups, having that side hustle
True.
on all the time,
Yeah,
along with you learning from the job that you are,
correct.
and gaining that experience, because you are going to be an integral part of your own startup, and you need to be a contributor as well.
Correct.
So you cannot do that just by telling other people what to do.
Yeah,
That is not being a contributor, right? So you need to have a skill of your own if you don't have that.
true.
So build on that as well, and have that side hustle of constantly working towards your own thing as well.
That's I think that's amazing. You build it as a side hustle initially. Don't go for it taking loans from your father and from your family. That's a bad idea. Just experiment, go to the industry, go to the market. If you enjoy that, you think you would be succeeding, like there's a very high probability, go for it. That's yeah.
One is your market, and both of those need to work and need to go hand in hand.
True.
your if your product is good and your market's not ready, it's still not going to work.
True.
And if you have a good market, even a crappy product would work, to be
True.
honest,
True.
right? So you need to have both go in hand, and if you already have products out there and you
Mhm.
want to, you have an idea of a good product,
Mhm.
you need to build it out, and like need to build it out first, but have the mindset that yeah, it might not, the market might not be ready for it. So
That's
specifically people who are already coding and who are in code, I would say just build your product out, just code it as a side hustle,
yeah.
put it as a GitHub private repository, not a problem. Okay,
Yeah.
if you have that mindset of like constantly being able to keep yourself productive towards like all of these things whenever you're free, it's extremely good, because even if it doesn't work out, you would not have that regret later that you did not work towards it at all.
Mhm.
It's fine even if you didn't have the marketing guy, you didn't have the team to establish it, but you did whatever you could with your own skills, right?
By the way,
So
on this, I really have a very funny story. So there was one of my friends, right? And he was like, he was a guy who would like, a startup geek. Are you getting it? So he would always talk about startup. He would always think about, making various stuffs. But I'm telling you, he talks more about starting startup than actually the product. Right?
yeah.
He was more fascinated about, he wants to be a CEO. He wants to hire people. That's more fascinating for him than the product itself. And I think that's a very big problem. First you work. You are not an entrepreneur, or you are not a CEO initially. You are just a worker.
Yep. If you need to know how you should run your startup, or you need to know the ideal work ethic, I would suggest watch how Elon Musk works.
True.
Okay.
Yes.
See his work ethic, and that's how you would know how a CEO works generally.
True.
Because that's like that's the level of work ethic you would need as a CEO, because
True.
you would not it's going to be hours and hours and hours of work,
True.
and you would not even have time to sleep. Okay, that guy sleeps in offices and his friends places. He does not
Yeah.
even have his own house. A startup is not about the fancy things that you're going to be a CEO, you're going to have a car of your own, like you're going to have this, that. It's not about all of that. It's way more about the work
The product,
and the product.
the
And
market, I think.
yeah, you need to be passionate towards the product essentially. Okay, what you're building out there, if you really believe that it's going to change lives,
Yeah.
you will be extremely passionate towards it, and you will do everything in your might to make it happen.
Mhm.
And that kind of mindset, and to have that mindset and to also have that support, okay,
True.
from your family and from your situation as well,
True.
okay, is I would say is extremely lucky.
True.
Okay, if you have that, and if you can work towards it, and like you have the idea of a really good product. So do not stop the hustle, because then you can make something that like you would be extremely proud of in the future.
That's amazing. I think uh so it the overall podcast, I think it was one of the most uh, a video of my YouTube channel which through which I learned the most. I truly admire coming on the platform and speaking with us, Stephen Wahid. Thank you, thanks a lot. And I'm like highly motivated that and one thing, to all the guys you watching, if you want him to come back on the platform, comment your questions and comment all the doubts which you have. And just I'll be sticking his LinkedIn profile, all the profiles, all the social media links in the description. Go and request him to come back and answer your questions. That will be amazing. So I'll be putting all of them amazing. And Stephen, would you like, what's your conclusion thought about this podcast, and what would you like to tell to our all the most of my viewers are like pretty teenagers, aspiring teenagers, who want to learn, create stuff. What would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, don't stop learning, I would say. Okay, skills, and don't stop talking to people, I would say. Whatever your aspirations are, okay, if you want to establish yourself in the corporate world, or want to work in startups, or want to build a startup for yourself, or whatever your aspirations are, skills and connections are the prime thing that like people would, like people would survive on. And keep building your skills, whatever your skill set is, keep building on it, and keep connecting to people, maybe on LinkedIn or how whatever social media platform you have, and keep building those the right connection set that you want to, so, and your skill set as well. So just keep working on this, and whatever goals you have, you can align these two things to, like, to those things. So, and yeah, wish you guys all the very best, whatever you guys are doing. Okay, if definitely, if this inspires someone, then that's like a really, really, what do you say, uh a really heartwarming thing for me. So
Amazing. Trust me, guys, if you will be commenting this down, I'll personally send him the comments. So, I would definitely like to know your thoughts. Thank you for watching the video. It was really amazing. If you have watched so far, that's amazing. You are definitely going to do something and achieve something in your life. That's amazing. Thank you for watching the video. You'll find all the social media links, everything of and soon will be, you'll get the stock on Spotify as well. So do check out the link of that as well in the description. Thank you for watching the video. Have a really, really great day ahead. Thank you and bye bye.